The notification chimed at 3:14 a.m., cutting through the stillness of Min-Jun Park's downtown apartment like a blade through silk. I'm writing this because I need you to know what you took from me. Our son. 4 months into my pregnancy, and he's gone. The doctors say it was complications from blunt force trauma, but you and I both know exactly what caused it. It was when you shoved me into the glass table because I came home 10 minutes late. When you locked me in the bathroom overnight because I questioned where you'd been. When you whispered that I was worthless, that my word meant nothing against yours, that everything I suffered was exactly what I'd earned. Min-Jun stared at the screen, ice flooding his veins. Our baby boy is dead because of what you did to me. I want that weight on your conscience every single day you draw breath. I want it to wake you up at night. I want you to see his face, the one he'll never have, every time you look in a mirror. This is the last time you'll hear from me. I'm done. Goodbye, Trevor. The message wasn't meant for him. Trevor. Someone else's nightmare. Someone else's victim. Min-Jun sat motionless at his kitchen counter, still wearing yesterday's dress shirt. The city's sleeping skyline stretched beyond his windows like a dark promise. Custom furniture. Original paintings. A sound system that cost more than most people earned in 6 months. All of it suddenly felt obscene. A stranger had just emptied her grief into the void and accidentally sent it straight to him. His mind began working immediately, processing the message with the same ruthless efficiency he brought to closing multi-million-dollar contracts and outmaneuvering corporate rivals. The details formed a devastating portrait. Calculated abuse. Strategic isolation. Violence that had crossed into territory so dark it had stolen a life before it began. And somewhere, a man named Trevor believed he'd escaped accountability. Min-Jun Park had spent his entire adult life mastering control, building decisions on logic rather than impulse, never letting emotion dictate action. But sitting there at 3:14 a.m., absorbing a stranger's raw pain, he did something completely unprecedented in his 34 years. He decided he would track her down, and then he would systematically dismantle the man responsible for this horror. His thumbs moved across the glass. This is Min-Jun Park. You've reached the wrong number. But I read your message, and you need to hear this. None of what happened is your fault. Trevor bears full responsibility for his choices, not you. If you're willing, I have resources that could help ensure he answers for what he's done. He pressed send before doubt could creep in. 3 minutes crawled by. Then 6. Then 12. Finally, those animated dots flickered into existence, vanished, returned. Who are you? How do you have this number? Min-Jun typed rapidly, sensing his window of opportunity narrowing. My name is Min-Jun Park. I run a private equity firm in the city. You contacted my personal line by mistake, likely one number off from your intended recipient. I realize how invasive this is, and I apologize for reading something so intimate, but I cannot simply erase this and move on. Please, are you somewhere secure right now? Her response arrived more quickly this time. I'm safe enough. Just delete everything and forget this happened. Sending it won't fix anything. It can fix more than you realize, Min-Jun wrote back. But only with your cooperation. Are you somewhere he cannot reach you currently? A longer gap. Then, I'm staying with my sister. He has no idea where she moved. But it's irrelevant. I filed a report months ago. His father has influence. Law enforcement won't touch him. Min-Jun's joy tightened. He'd encountered this narrative too many times. Wealthy families. Compromised systems. Women whose testimonies were buried before they could be heard. What if I told you I have access to resources that transcend local corruption? What if I could help you construct a case so airtight that no one could suppress it? Why would you involve yourself? You don't know anything about me. This isn't your burden. Min-Jun stared at those words, weighing how much honesty to offer. Finally, he typed, 5 years ago, I had a younger sister. She was involved with someone who harmed her repeatedly. She attempted to leave several times, but he always manipulated her into returning. Made promises about change. The final time, he killed her. I was overseas negotiating a merger when it happened. By the time my flight landed, she was already gone. His fingers trembled slightly as he continued. Her name was Sujin, and every day since, I've questioned what might have been different if someone had stepped in sooner. If she'd had access to real protection, resources, an exit strategy that didn't rely on institutions designed to fail her. I cannot bring my sister back, but perhaps I can make a difference for you. Please, allow me this chance. The silence expanded until he thought he'd driven her away. Then his phone began ringing. Unknown caller. He answered before the second ring. Hello, is this Min-Jun Park? The voice was feminine, worn thin by exhaustion, carrying a resonant quality that suggested hours, possibly days, of crying. Yes. Is this you? My name is Zephyr. Zephyr Lennox. She drew an unsteady breath. I don't understand why I'm calling. This is insane. You're a complete stranger, and I just shared the most devastating thing that's ever happened to me with you. Sometimes strangers are the easiest people to tell, Min-Jun said softly. There's no shared history. No preconceptions. No obligations. Or maybe I'm just desperate enough to believe someone might genuinely care. Her laugh carried edges of bitterness and fracture. Do you have any idea how many times I contacted emergency services? 9 times. 9 separate calls, and they dispatched the same officers who attend Trevor's father's political fundraisers, who vacation with his family, who look at me, at my skin, at the part of town I'm from, and conclude I'm fabricating everything. Min-Jun's grip tightened around his phone. Tell me the complete story. From the beginning. And she did. For the next 70 minutes, Zephyr Lennox walked him through her relationship with Trevor Castellano. How they'd crossed paths 4 years ago when she was completing her master's in social work. How captivating he'd seemed initially. Elaborate dates, handwritten letters, sweeping romantic gestures. How that charm had gradually transformed into domination, so subtly she hadn't recognized the shift until she was completely cut off. How he'd methodically severed her friendships, convinced her family she'd withdrawn by choice, sabotaged her career prospects until she depended entirely on his financial support. How the first act of violence had been followed by his tears, his pleas for forgiveness, his vows that it would never happen again. How it kept happening over and over and over. I discovered I was pregnant 7 months ago, Zephyr said, her voice splintering. And for a brief moment, I believed maybe it would transform things. Maybe fatherhood would inspire him to become better. It escalated, Min-Jun stated. Dramatically worse. He accused me of entrapping him. Claimed I'd conceived deliberately to prevent him from leaving, which was absurd because I was the one desperately trying to escape. She paused, studying herself. 3 weeks ago, I told him I needed to stay with my sister for a while, that I required distance. He completely lost control. Said I couldn't leave, couldn't take his child away. That's when he threw you down the stairs. He didn't shove me. He launched me. Zephyr's tone flattened, detached, the sound of someone recounting trauma they'd disconnected from. Grabbed both my arms and literally hurled me down an entire staircase. I remember my shoulder hitting the railing about halfway down. Then nothing. Min-Jun closed his eyes, rage and sorrow battling inside his chest. My sister found me, rushed me to the hospital. I was hemorrhaging. So much blood. She inhaled shakily. They couldn't save him. Said the trauma triggered something catastrophic. My baby boy, because they'd confirmed he was a boy by then. He just stopped existing inside me. Zephyr, I'm profoundly sorry. The emergency room physician asked about my injuries. I told the truth. She documented everything, contacted the authorities. Want to know what happened? Trevor's father appeared instead of regular patrol officers. Told the doctor I was mentally unstable, that I'd fallen during an argument because I was hysterical. The physician tried to advocate for me, but Trevor's family threatened litigation for defamation. So nothing was filed. No charges. No investigation. No justice. Just me with a dead child and Trevor walking free, spreading stories that I'm delusional, that I invented everything for attention. Min-Jun's mind was already constructing strategies. Zephyr, I need you to place your trust in me. Can you do that? I don't trust anyone anymore. That's fair. Then don't trust me yet. Just give me 72 hours. If I cannot deliver meaningful results by then, block my number and we'll never speak again. But if I can help secure justice for your son, will you let me try? Silence stretched between them, fragile as spider silk. What could you possibly do? Zephyr asked finally. You run an investment firm. You're not a detective or an attorney. I'm an executive with substantial resources. Capital. Private investigators. Attorneys who don't collapse under pressure. Most importantly, I'm someone who learned that inaction is its own form of violence. His voice gentled. Let me help you, Zephyr. Please. Another extended pause. Then, 72 hours. But Mr. Park, Min-Jun, please. Min-Jun, you need to understand something. I'm not some helpless victim waiting for rescue. I'm not shattered or fragile. I'm furious. I'm mourning. And I'm finished being polite about any of it. If you're expecting gratitude and compliance, I'm expecting you to be exactly who you are. And from what I'm hearing, that's someone strong enough to endure hell and courageous enough to fight back. That's not weakness, Zephyr. That's power. He heard her breath catch. Okay. 72 hours. The clock starts now. Min-Jun Park didn't sleep that night. Instead, he made calls. His first went to Dante Rivera, his head of security, a former intelligence operative who'd pulled Min-Jun out of a dangerous situation during negotiations in Manila. Dante specialized in uncovering information people desperately wanted buried. I need a comprehensive file on Trevor Castellano. Everything. Employment, connections, buried secrets. Focus on financial transactions, communications, and any complaints filed against him that mysteriously vanished. How deep? Dante asked, understanding the unspoken question. How far into questionable territory? Deep enough to destroy him, but clean enough that everything stands up legally. Consider it done. His second call went to Iris Nakamura, the most formidable prosecutor-turned-defense attorney in the region. She'd represented everyone from Fortune 500 executives to organized crime figures with a success rate that made district attorneys weep. Iris, I need you on a case. Pro bono. Min-Jun, I don't work pro bono. You know this. You'll take this one. Domestic violence. The victim is a black woman. The perpetrator is a white man whose family has law enforcement in their pocket. Every attempt to press charges has been blocked. Sounds like a nightmare case. Which is exactly why I need the best. I'll cover every expense. I just need your name attached so they understand we're serious. Iris was quiet for a moment. Send me what you have. If it's as solid as you claim, I'm in. His third call went to his college friend, Kenji, who worked in the state attorney general's office. Kenji owed Min-Jun several favors from the years Min-Jun had quietly funded his political campaigns. Kenji, I need background on Deputy Commissioner Castellano and his family. Specifically, patterns of complaints being suppressed. Min-Jun, if you're investigating law enforcement, I'm investigating corruption that's allowed an abuser to operate with impunity. Are you helping or not? Kenji sighed. Send the details. Off record, there have been whispers about the Castellano family. Nothing concrete, but enough smoke to warrant investigation. Then let's create fire. By 6 a.m., Min-Jun had assembled his team. By 9 a.m., they'd begun gathering evidence. By 2 p.m., the picture was even uglier than Zephyr had described. Trevor Castellano wasn't just an abuser. He was a serial predator with a trail of victims spanning over a decade. For ex-girlfriends, all with parallel stories. Charm becoming control. Control becoming violence. Violence followed by intimidation and threats ensuring their silence. 3 had filed reports that were mysteriously withdrawn. 1 had pursued a protective order that was denied despite documented injuries. All four had been warned by Castellano family members that pressing charges would destroy their lives. Min-Jun's investigators also uncovered financial irregularities. Trevor managed investments at a firm owned by his father's associate. There were suspicious transfers, potential securities fraud, evidence of embezzlement that had been overlooked. Ammunition. Leverage. Justice. At 3 p.m., Min-Jun called Zephyr. "I found 4 other women," he said without preamble. 4 women Trevor victimized who were too frightened or unsupported to pursue justice. "With your permission, I'd like to contact them to see if they'd testify if we build a case strong enough that the Castellano family cannot bury it." Zephyr's voice wavered when she responded. "There are others?" "Yes. And I apologize. I know that makes this worse, knowing you weren't the first." "Actually," she paused. "Actually, it makes me feel less isolated. Less crazy. If other women saw the same patterns, experienced identical tactics, then it proves I was telling the truth all along." "Exactly. It validates everything." He heard her draw a deep breath. "Contact them. Do whatever needs to be done. I want Trevor to face accountability for everything. All of it. Then that's what we'll deliver." By day 2, Min-Jun had secured signed affidavits from all 4 women. Iris had filed a comprehensive criminal complaint with the state attorney general's office, completely bypassing local law enforcement. The case included aggravated assault, reckless endangerment, witness intimidation, and feticide. Trevor Castellano was arrested at his office, perp-walked in handcuffs, while news cameras captured everything. His family attempted to intervene, but Min-Jun had ensured media presence. Strategic leaks about the Castellano family's history of suppressing complaints meant any interference would only compound their problems. Deputy Commissioner Castellano suddenly faced internal investigation. Trevor's father's business partner was suspended pending review of financial irregularities. The entire corrupt infrastructure that had protected Trevor was collapsing. Min-Jun finally met Zephyr in person 3 days later. She'd requested they meet at a bookstore cafe in her neighborhood, neutral ground, public enough to feel secure. Min-Jun arrived 20 minutes early, ordering tea he didn't touch while waiting. When she entered, he recognized her immediately. Zephyr Lennox was smaller than he'd imagined, maybe 5'3" in the sneakers she wore beneath black jeans. Her natural hair was styled in a twist-out, the dark coils framing her face. She wore minimal makeup, just enough to emphasize the bone-deep exhaustion in her dark brown eyes. But it was the determination in her posture, the steel in her spine as she approached, that made Min-Jun's chest tighten. This wasn't a victim. This was a survivor. The distinction mattered. "Mr. Park?" she asked, stopping at his table. "Min-Jun, please." He stood, extending his hand. "You must be Zephyr." Her handshake was firm, assessing. "You're younger than I expected. When you said private equity, I pictured someone older. I started early. Family business." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Can I get you something?" "Vanilla latte with almond milk, if that's okay." While he ordered, Zephyr settled in, scanning the bookstore with the hypervigilance of someone trained to track exits and threats. Min-Jun noticed, but remained silent, returning with her drink and a croissant she hadn't requested, but accepted with a slight smile. "You didn't have to do all this," she said after her first sip. "The lawyers, the investigators, getting Trevor arrested. That exceeds helping a stranger. It was necessary. People don't usually go this far just because something's necessary. They want something." Her eyes met his, direct and challenging. "What do you want, Min-Jun?" He appreciated her directness. "Honestly, I want to sleep at night knowing I used my resources for something meaningful. After Sujin died, I buried myself in work. Built my firm larger, accumulated more wealth, acquired more influence. None of it mattered because I couldn't save the one person who mattered most. So I'm your redemption project. No, you're your own person fighting your own battle. I'm simply someone who refused to look away when I witnessed that battle." Min-Jun leaned forward slightly. But I understand if that makes you uncomfortable. If you want me to step back, just say it. Zephyr studied him for a long moment, something shifting in her expression. I spent 4 years with someone who made every kindness conditional on my gratitude, my obedience, my submission. You're saying I can tell you to leave and you'll just walk away without argument. That's either incredibly respectful or an excellent manipulation tactic. It's respect. You deserve autonomy, especially after having it stolen for so long. She took another sip, considering. I don't want you to leave. But you need to understand something. I'm not who I was before Trevor. I'm harder now. Angrier. I don't trust easily and probably never will again. I have nightmares. Panic attacks when people move suddenly near me. I'm in therapy trying to untangle 4 years of psychological warfare. Okay. Just okay. What else would I say? You survived trauma. You're managing the aftermath. That's not weakness, Zephyr. That's evidence of your resilience. Her eyes glistened. Why are you so different from every other man I've encountered? Maybe I'm not. Maybe you simply deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, and that shouldn't feel exceptional. It should be standard. Zephyr wiped her eyes quickly, composing herself. Okay. Since you're here and we're doing this, I want to know about you. Not Executive Min-Jun Park. Just Min-Jun. Who are you when you're not saving strangers? So he told her. About growing up in Seoul before his family relocated to Chicago when he was 14. About his father who'd built Park Equity from nothing but died before witnessing it become what it was today. About the pressure of being the oldest son, the heir, the one expected to carry forward the family legacy. About Soo-jin, who'd been brilliant and defiant and determined to prove she didn't need the family name to succeed. How she'd fallen for someone who seemed perfect until he wasn't. How Min-Jun had been too consumed with acquisitions and negotiations to notice the warning signs until it was too late. She called me the night she died, Min-Jun said quietly. Asked me to come get her. Said she was finally ready to leave him permanently. I was in Seoul closing a deal. I told her I'd fly back the next morning, that we'd sort everything out then. His hands tightened around his cup. She was dead before I even boarded my flight. He beat her so severely the coroner said she wouldn't have survived even with immediate medical intervention. I was too late. I'll always be too late for her. But maybe I can be on time for others. Zephyr reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. The gesture was tentative, testing, the first time she'd initiated physical contact. Your sister's death wasn't your fault, just like my son's death wasn't mine. We cannot carry responsibility for other people's violence. Intellectually, I understand that. Emotionally, he shook his head. It's more complex. Yeah, it really is. They sat in comfortable silence, two people connected by grief and determination to create meaning from loss. So what happens now? Zephyr asked finally. Trevor's arrested, but I know how this works. His family will hire elite lawyers. They'll destroy my reputation. Paint me as a liar, opportunist, whatever narrative casts him as the victim. Let them try. We have evidence. Medical documentation, statements from 4 other women, financial crimes even the best attorney cannot explain away. And Zephyr, Min-Jun's eyes hardened. I don't fight fair. If the Castellanos come after you, they'll find themselves fighting battles on multiple fronts. I'll make it so costly, so public, so devastating to their reputation that withdrawal becomes their only option. That sounds almost frightening. Good. Trevor terrorized you for years. It's time he learned what fear feels like. Zephyr smiled, and for the first time since meeting, it reached her eyes. You know what? I think I'm going to appreciate having you on my side. The feeling is mutual. The preliminary hearing occurred 3 weeks later. Min-Jun sat in the courtroom gallery, watching as Iris Nakamura systematically dismantled every defense argument. Zephyr testified with quiet strength that made Min-Jun's chest ache with pride and fury. She detailed every incident. The first hit that came with apologies. The escalating violence. The systematic isolation. The night Trevor threw her down the stairs. Medical experts confirmed her injuries aligned with her testimony. The 4 other women testified about their experiences, establishing an undeniable pattern. Trevor's attorney attempted to portray them as vindictive ex-girlfriends coordinating fabrications. But Iris had phone records, messages, social media history, a digital trail proving these women didn't know each other until Min-Jun's investigators made contact. The judge ruled sufficient evidence existed to proceed to trial. Trevor was held without bail, deemed both a flight risk and danger to the community. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Zephyr had agreed to a brief statement, standing tall and proud as cameras flashed. For 4 years, I believed I was alone, that no one would believe me. That fighting was pointless because the system protected men like Trevor Castellano. But I was wrong. The system failed, but people didn't. Today, I want every woman watching to know, your voice matters. Your truth matters. There are people willing to fight for you when you're ready to fight for yourself. Min-Jun watched from the periphery, maintaining distance to let this be her moment. But when she finished and the press dispersed, she found him with her eyes and smiled. And in that smile, Min-Jun saw everything that mattered. Resilience. Hope. The beginning of healing. 72 hours after their first conversation had become 3 weeks. 3 weeks had become 2 months. And somewhere amid the chaos of legal proceedings and press conferences, Min-Jun and Zephyr had become friends. They met for coffee twice weekly. Min-Jun brought her books he thought she'd appreciate. Zephyr showed him artwork from the therapy sessions she'd resumed, working with other domestic violence survivors. They texted randomly throughout the day, sometimes about the case, more often about nothing consequential. He learned she loved classic soul music and spoken-word poetry, that she could cook Creole food that made him reconsider every meal he'd ever eaten, that she laughed with her entire body when something genuinely delighted her. She learned he was obsessed with terrible cooking competition shows, that he played cello when he needed to think, that beneath his controlled exterior was someone profoundly lonely, still grieving his sister, using work to fill the void where connection should exist. They were careful with each other, respectful of boundaries. Min-Jun never pushed beyond what Zephyr offered, and she appreciated the space to heal without pressure. But something was developing between them. Something neither wanted to name yet, but both felt. It crystallized 3 months after that initial text, on the anniversary of Sujin's death. Min-Jun had mentioned he needed the day off to handle personal matters. Zephyr had respected that without prying. But at 9 p.m., his doorbell rang. He opened it to find Zephyr holding a bag of Korean takeout and a bottle of soju. "You shouldn't be alone tonight," she said simply. Min-Jun felt something break open in his chest. "How did you mentioned your sister died in December, and today you look like you're carrying the world. Doesn't take brilliance to connect those dots." She stepped past him into his apartment. "So I'm here. We can eat, drink, talk about her if you want, or just sit quietly if that's better. Your choice." They ended up on his balcony overlooking the city, sharing food and memories. Min-Jun told her about Sujin. Not just her death, but her life. Her terrible jokes. Her talent for painting, but complete inability to sing. How she'd always believed in people's inherent goodness, even when they proved her wrong. "She would have liked you," Min-Jun said as the soju bottle emptied. "She would have admired your courage." "I would have liked her too." Zephyr pulled the blanket Min-Jun had draped over her shoulders tighter. "I'm sorry you lost her. And I'm sorry my situation reopened all that pain. Don't apologize. Meeting you, helping you, it's given me something I didn't have before. Purpose beyond profit. A reason to use my resources for something meaningful. You matter too, you know. Not just what you can do for others. You, Min-Jun Park, as a person. You matter." The words struck him harder than they should have. When was the last time someone had valued him as a human rather than a resource? "Thank you," he said quietly. They fell silent, watching the city lights blur and sharpen as the alcohol worked through their systems. I'm scared, Zephyr admitted suddenly. Of what? Of this. Of you. Of feeling something again after swearing I was done with relationships forever. She turned to look at him, vulnerability stark on her face. I have feelings for you, Min-Jun, real ones. And it terrifies me because what if I'm wrong again? What if you're another Trevor hiding behind a better facade? Min-Jun's heart pounded, but he kept his voice steady. I cannot prove I'm not. All I can do is demonstrate through consistent actions over time. But Zephyr, I need you to know I have feelings for you too. And I'm terrified because I don't want to become another source of pain in your life. I don't want to push too hard or move too fast or do anything that makes you feel unsafe. So what do? We're honest. We go slowly. We communicate. He reached out slowly, telegraphing the movement, giving her time to withdraw. When she didn't, he took her hand. And we trust that two broken people can maybe help each other heal. Zephyr squeezed his hand. I'm not ready for grand romantic gestures or declarations. But maybe we could try dating. Real dating, where we figure out if this is genuine or just trauma bonding. I would like that very much. She leaned her head on his shoulder, a gesture of trust that meant more than any kiss. Okay then. Let's try. And sitting there under December stars, mourning the sister he'd lost while holding the hand of the woman he was falling for, Min-Jun understood something profound. Sometimes the wrong number is exactly the right call. Sometimes tragedy creates unexpected connection. Sometimes broken people don't need fixing. They just need someone willing to sit with them in the darkness until light breaks through. The trial was scheduled for February. Trevor's attorneys kept attempting delays, but Iris Nakamura was relentless. The case moved forward despite every obstacle the Castellano family erected. Min-Jun and Zephyr's relationship grew carefully, deliberately. First dates that felt like negotiations as they learned each other's triggers and boundaries. Conversations about trauma and recovery. Therapy sessions they sometimes attended together to ensure they were building something healthy. The attraction was undeniable, but they both understood rushing toward physical intimacy before establishing emotional safety would poison everything they were creating. And they were creating something real. Something worth protecting. Something that had started with a wrong number and evolved into the rightest thing in both their lives. If this story resonated with you, if Zephyr and Min-Jun's journey moved you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and whether you believe in second chances, for survivors to find justice, for wounded people to find love, for wrong numbers to become right connections. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.